This episode of the Three Body Problem is presented by Thinkst Canary. Most companies find out they've been breached way too late, usually after the damage is already done. Thinkst Canary flips that model. You deploy canaries or canary tokens in minutes, drop them into your environment, and then forget about them. When an attacker touches one, they tip their hand and you get a single high-confidence alert exactly when it matters. There's virtually no admin overhead, almost no false positives, and that's why canaries are used by some of the best security teams in the world, on all 7 continents. If you want early warning that actually works, check them out at canary.tools or see what real users are saying at canary.love.
Where?
Do you remember when I was saying, where's the CISA advisory with the IOCs, with the Yara rules for the leaked exploits? And like, no, I was like, lawyers cannot allow us to share anything, la 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 la. Like, no, we have it. You see, it's here. It's with us.
Wife, we have IOCs. Wife, we have Coruna now.
Good morning, everyone.
Coruna.
Is it Coruna or Coruna?
It depends on
how you pronounce
it.
Yeah.
Depends on what it is.
I don't
This
know.
is episode 88 of the Three Body Problem. Good morning to everyone listening all over the world. It is Friday, March 6th at about 9:15 in the morning. Juanito is checking in from the Reverse Conference in Orlando. Nice fancy schmancy hotel room over there. What's going on in Orlando?
I mean, Orlando's great. I'm missing like the talks, the first talks right now, just to be here with you lovely folks. But
it started today.
Yeah, it started today. And it's the same, so far, like the same vibe as last year, which was, I think, as we noted, right? Like very chill, very cool, not a lot of drinking as far as I can tell. And like just people actually talking about reversing and AI, of course. So I'm curious. I'm interested. I want to see how the Binja stuff like plays with this now.
Good stuff. We'll talk about it next week. Shout out to Jordan and good luck to all the speakers hitting the stage there today and tomorrow. Costin is in Bucharest, Romania, having tons of fun overnight playing with Coruna exploit kits. What's going on, Costin?
I'm just back from Belgium. Before that, from Innsbruck. So it's been a lot of traveling recently for me. And finally, I had the chance to sit down a bit, preparing for Women's Day. But I don't know how big that is in the States, March 8th.
We talked about this last year.
We talked, huh?
There's no Women's Day over here. Well, I'm sure there
it used to be a big thing at Kaspersky, remember? So it's a big thing in Russia, right?
And in Romania, it starts with Valentine's Day on 14th. Then is Dragobete, some Romanian Valentine's Day, or like the Romanian Valentine's Days. And 24th of February. And then March 1st, Marțișor. And then March 8th, Women's Day, International Women's Day. All of them are super big holidays, super big.
Well, don't let anybody know over here. We try to keep our women as unappreciated and keep their expectations as low as possible in the West. So
I still remember back. What was it in Russia? March 8th was Women's Day, and March 9 was Men's Day, something like that.
To get back the day, make sure they got their day the next day.
Just rebalance things. God forbid, Jesus
Let's
Christ.
get to the show. This week we got big news out of Google Threat Intelligence. Costin starts off by talking about the CISA thing. We had been discussing this Peter Williams L3 Trenchant scandal. He just got sentenced, and coming off of that, Costin made the argument that someone should at least ship some IOCs or something to help hunting for some of these things that we know got into the wrong people's hands. And then this week we got a report from Google Threat Intelligence Group with a case study on this Coruna, this high-end iOS exploit kit that targeted older phones. I did a podcast yesterday with Matthias Frielingsdorf from iVerify that went over this.
You're doing podcasts without us, bro? Like you're just off doing your own thing now?
I'm doing my one-on-one interviews.
Wow.
So we can add context to some of these stories. I did a podcast with him yesterday, and he looked at some of the code names and said he had a gut feeling that this definitely is L3 Trenchant code, and it's probably connected to the Peter Williams leak. Costin, overnight you were tweeting
What's
hashes.
A gut feeling? What do you mean by a gut feeling?
Suspicion, just a feeling.
A vibe.
A feeling. You tweeted
Somewhere in there.
overnight from your Is It on VT account sharing some hashes, which give me the impression that you got a chance to look into this. What can you tell the audience about what you saw and kind of frame it within the context of that Peter Williams Trenchant discussion point?
I mean, walk us through the story. How the fuck are you the one sharing samples and nobody else is, right? Like everyone else is analyzing the shit out of it and nobody's got anything to say about like
I admit that when I saw the Google blog, first of all I said, okay, so Chinese cybercriminals, cryptocurrency. I was not very impressed. The Russian side of things seemed interesting. The fact that it was used on some water holes in Ukraine and Google spotted that, so that seemed interesting. But I didn't have like any high hopes. And the fact there were like no samples on VirusTotal for it, it means you can't analyze anything. You can look at the infrastructure maybe, but without samples to look, there isn't much to play with. And then I think iVerify came with the blog as well, but also no samples. By the way, all the hashes from the iVerify blog, they're not on VirusTotal. And I added them to monitor it to my project, and I was sure, in a few days they'll show up on VT, but so far nothing has shown on VT. However, some nice people were able to share some URLs. So shout outs to Valadin, who published an extensive blog on the Chinese infrastructure running this exploit kit at the moment, with many of the hosts from their blog being alive right now. So you can play with them, you can interact, you can infect your phone with them, you can reverse engineer all those exploits, fetch them. And I started doing that, to be honest, earlier today. And as I was going through all these binaries, we have an expression in Romania: when you catch your fingers, it means you kind of get stuck because it's so complicated. And I was like, holy shit, this is not just some cyber criminal stuff. And then, by the way, Ryan, do you remember by any chance what was the name of the exploit that Marked Out sold to the FBI in 2013?
The San Bernardino
San
thing?
Bernardino case, yeah.
did we know
I
the name?
do.
It had the
Condor.
name.
Was it Condor?
Condor.
Condor.
It was Condor, yeah. So I was reading the Google blog, and
Oh,
I was looking
no.
at the exploit names, and I was like, what the hell is a cassowary? Is it like a cassowary? Like Turla has this malware called cassowary, and I was like, is it a cassowary? I never saw this word before. What is it? And then I realized that, this is like, they're all birds. What is it? Cassowary, bluebird, jacurutu, which is, we discovered it's a Brazilian owl or something like that.
Is
A
Condor a
terror
bird?
The condor
Yeah,
is a
of
bird.
course it's a
El
bird,
Condor
bro.
Pasa, famous song.
Ah.
It's a big
Oh.
bird with big wings.
Big
I see.
bird.
In particular, I think cassowary is interesting because this is an Australian bird, or it's like native to Australia, New Guinea. And I guess, it's starting to look more and more like these are code names that were used by Azimuth for their exploits. They were using bird names for the exploits, in particular for the web content RCEs. The other exploits, they seem to be coming from physics, so maybe different people are developing the browser exploits and the EOPs or the LPEs. The other guys are into physics, like neutron, photon, quark, Helion, is it Helion? Which is a name for the Helion is the name of the helium nucleus. That's like a code, name if you want for that. So it seems there's a bunch of different groups developing these exploits, and the guys with the web browser exploits, they seem to be liking bird names. And I was like, wow, this is like really sophisticated. So the more I was looking, the more I was like, oh yeah, it seems that this did indeed come from the side of things that we were discussing the last time and complaining that CISA isn't sharing. And now you see how serious this is. Like holy shit, the set of 0 days and exploits that were being sold by Trenchant to reputable customers, they end up somehow in the hands of Russia, who they use them in Ukraine. Google spots them in Ukraine and reaches out to the Ukrainian CERT to disinfect those sites and to clean up the whole thingy. And then they show up in hands of Chinese cyber criminals who start using them for cryptocurrency theft. It's just like, this is crazy. This is it's a shadow brokers level event. It's the only thing I can compare it is, and now I understand also why iVerify was saying that, like, this is eternal blue level. This is a shadow broker / eternal blue level a catastrophe. That's the word and the reality here.
Are the Chinese taking this shit down as you're scanning them, like whatever the Chinese scammer folks are, or are they
Seems
still
don't.
up?
No, they're still up. It seems they don't care
How
much. And
widespread?
there's like tons and tons of those. More like, even like some of them, they were spun up like recently. They're related to Iran, and they're like these fake charity websites. Please send money, donate cryptocurrency for Iran, save Iran. While in reality, if you want to donate with like an older vulnerable phone, yeah, you get pwned by the Coruna exploit kit. I think it's important to say, by the way, this is a very important detail in my opinion, which is that even when this was being deployed in Ukraine, right, which was in July 2025, the first time Google saw it was in February 2025, when allegedly a customer of that company was using it. And I thought it was interesting that Google spotted it in February, but
did
it
nothing.
seems, it seems they just kept monitoring the situation, right? And later in July, Russians started using it. And that was when Google immediately took action, reported it to the Ukrainian CERT and so on. But it's important, in my opinion, to say that all the time, all the time this was happening, there were no 0 days involved. All of them were like old stuff, 2024 level CVs, 2023 level CVs. There was nothing that you can say was a 0 day at that time, which is good.
Not everything had
if you ask me.
CVEs though. Like some
Everything
of the
had
APAC
CVs.
bypasses and so on didn't have CVEs.
Correct. And again, I haven't been able to look at everything just yet because the volume is just insane. It's huge.
Really?
And the volume of data is huge. Like, there's a lot of scripts and a lot of things to look at, and including some interesting exploit bypasses that Google is also mentioning that they haven't seen before, which are, again, those alone are kind of a treasure trove of information, and they deserve a lot of scrutiny and attention. But I think it's still good to know that this was not using 0 days, at least based on existing information, right? Because we don't know, maybe there were other exploits being used at the same time. Although the idea of using this as a water hole, in my opinion, is just kind of crazy. The only thing which is a bit shady, suspicious, in my opinion, I know there's other people saying, oh, this is connected to triangulation because it just happens to have two of the exploits that were also used in the triangulation case. And those have like this kind of physics name there, I think, if I remember correctly, like photon. And like, I don't think the timeline kind of justifies that it's the same exploits, because remember, those were being in use since 2019, and Kaspersky busted them in 2023, not 24.
23.
So yeah. And from 2023 to 2025, there's 2 years to incorporate what are now burn exploits and possibly even re-implement or reconstruct them from publicly available information.
There's a part of the overlap there that is still unexplained though.
Which one do you mean?
Like two of the exploit targeted the same vulnerabilities Kaspersky discovered being used in 2023, but neither of these report actually say whether there's I mean, that's leading to some of the speculation you're mentioning.
If we would have the samples, we could check if it's exactly the same implementation, but because there are no samples, because Google didn't upload any samples to VirusTotal, because iVerify didn't upload any samples to VirusTotal, there's no way to check if they are identical or the same, or if they're like a parallel implementation, or if they have been reconstructed and re-implemented. There was one, like, if we're into conspiracy theories here, why not?
We're not like, into that
Friday.
at all.
It's Friday. We're
I
always.
don't know.
What is it today? It's March 6th. Yeah, I think it's March 6th. It's a perfect day for conspiracy theories. I could
Starlink
say,
is
like,
in retrograde. It's a good time for us to talk about
Saturn Pluto. So one of the things which doesn't kind of fit in the story is this Coruna. Like, why is it not like a bird's name, like or something? Why is it Coruna? I was
But is
wondering if
Coruna the framework? Is like
yeah, exactly. While the others are, I don't know, like bird names or physics or whatever. So I was even wondering if there's any chance here.
Did
Again,
Google name
conspiracy
it
theory.
Coruna, or did
No,
It's
it's
internal.
in
it
there.
was an
Like
internal code name? Okay.
they were able to spot a version of the exploit key with debug information from the Chinese. So somehow the Chinese got their hands on two versions of this: one with debug information and one with the exploit key with debug information apparently calls itself Coruna or Corunia. I was even wondering if could it be like there's two things here. There's like an exploitation, like the framework, the platform,
Yeah.
and then there's like multiple exploits which may be coming from Trenchant or whatever, and someone just put them together into one package. That would be for sure like some kind of conspiracy theory.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to kind of parse without having looked at any of it myself, right? Like I don't know how to parse the some of the discussions from like the iVerify blog where they're talking about, it looks like it's being written by a single author, which I doubt. I mean, I don't know the scale of this thing. There's no way it's a single author, but if you want to say it's like the same source, right? Like that's building the thing. Some part of me this whole time, like I'm just sort of sitting here, kind of bitterly laughing at the idea of like the highest possible end of commercial exploit throwing platform not just ending up in the hands of like the Russians, but then ending up in the hands of some like fucking Chinese scammers who don't give a fuck. They're not cleaning up. They're just leaving it out there. You put it out with debug strings, right? It's like, that you literally are taking like the Lamborghini of the exploit world and then just like using it to do like Uber deliveries, right? Like it's so sad.
I think the best angle, by the way, with these stories would be how did by the way, iVerify, they say they got a notification or somebody told them
Somebody
about
gave
it.
he admitted that they got a tip off. Someone gave him a URL that he went to and was able to retrieve these things coming down to and infect his phones with them.
Nice. Who?
I don't know. That's the part of the Kim Zetter question I missed because I did shout out to Kim Zetter again.
Come on.
The
We
first
told
thing
you
I
to go
asked him
full
is
Kim
like, "How
Zetter
did
in
you
there,
get
bro?"
this? How did you guys get this?" But I want to circle back on one thing. How did Google get their hands on it? How do we have a feeling? Do we have an idea how Google would have gotten their hands on it? And two, Google had to have known what they're publishing here. We've had incidents in the past where we've criticized Google for not releasing and withholding things and so on. They had to know that they're going public with something that will obviously be linked to Trenchant, the same way Costin did it. So two questions there. Juanito, how do you think they got their hands on it? And two, what are the equities that goes into? Do we put this thing out? Do we not put this thing out? Is this helpful? Is this not helpful?
So, I mean, I have no inside knowledge on how they got it, but there's a really interesting line in the Google report where they talk about, I don't remember the exact phrase, but it's essentially how the JavaScript is obfuscated in like not. I think the JavaScript is obfuscated in a common but unique way. It was something like that, which immediately jumped out at me because if you ask me how would they find it, and we've discussed this at length, and then Clem discussed it, if I believe at Hexacon last year, where I mean, think about the infrastructure that Google, being Google, is running, right? You're scanning all of the internet all the time. You have all of this amazing like distributed compute. You are indexing the content of these websites all the time. And then you have now, I mean, Clem said as much in public, but even back when we were at Chronicle, like you could see that Google had this capability to essentially run, like Tag had this capability to essentially run heuristics and detections on the JavaScript content and the website content of everything that's being scraped. So it's this gold mine, right, where you have a copy of the internet in memory. You're scraping and indexing like everything everywhere, and you have enough compute and expertise to be able to say, hey, what of these JavaScript components is unique? What of it is different? What of it is where? And JavaScript is a dirty, dirty, awful thing to wade through. But if you can put the right machines to it, um, I suspect that a great deal of it that we see on the internet is fairly generic, and then you have a much more interesting subset of things. And that's without even counting the fact that like you have Chrome telemetry, you have, safe browsing telemetry and everything else. And a lot of, I mean, look, the most obvious and most important, not so secret thing of threat hunting is rarity at the end of the day. Anomaly prevalence is the greatest thing you can ever harness for, especially the bigger the data set that you've got, the more you can just point to what are things that are unusual. And by that, I mean literally like rare. Like, how many unique things do you think are really out there on a set of systems that, most folks are still using largely generic code, or they're using precompiled binaries that are shared and whatnot. So, like, even we used to do this back at KL, and shout out to Sergey Minev. But just looking at a whole fleet of computers and saying, hey, what of these samples are, what of these files in System 32 are only present in like one or two computers? Like that alone, just that. Fuck everything else. That was like APT gold, just sort of like falling out of the sky, because you go, well, yeah, they're scarce, right? At the end of the day, that's something that you can't fight against. So like I see it as sort of like the browser version of that, of saying, hey, there's all these websites, they've got all this JavaScript. There's like a strangely unique piece of JavaScript code that is doing some kind of, it's slightly obfuscated, and when you go through it's fingerprinting a device, and then it's trying to produce some kind of payload. Like, I would be surprised if Google didn't run into that once you get into having that kind of server exposed and not having it be like a single live link or a single, right? Like a lot of the safety mechanisms that go into idiot proofing these sorts of high-end exploit throwing platforms are more about like where you position it and how you make it reachable and how often can it be reached and by whom, right? If I'm trying to infect Ryan, I create a single link, right? It's what we see with like all these NSO exploits. I create a single link, it can only be clicked once, maybe it can be clicked 3 times tops, and then it's dead, right? And it means that you don't have this server just exposed to the internet, just waiting for anything that comes around. By the time you've got, I mean, God knows how the Russians are sort of using this thing. They're not the most careful folks, but by the time you get to the Chinese ones, like doing scams, like, yeah, it's just fucking full out, right? Like it's just on the internet waiting for any kind of visitor. And at that point, I would, if Google didn't catch that, I would expect them to have a sit down and be like, what went wrong? Because that's the kind of situation that they're already perfectly instrumented for.
It's also possible someone gave them a URL as well.
Yeah,
they have all these capabilities, of course, but it's also possible that they got tipped off. And I want to stay in my conspiracy brain there, because I asked about the equities that went into the decision of Google to say, let's go public with this thing. Because as soon as we go public, people are going to figure this thing out is a Trenchant thing. What do you think those conversations were?
I mean, I don't think that that's as complicated a conversation under the circumstances as it might have been under anything. Like if we were having this conversation in 2023, then you go, oof, right? Like touchy, right? And that's a discussion that's been had, and people like JD Work and others have kind of come down on Google for publishing on exploits that, they said were being used for like counterterrorism and so on, in what are similar setups, I presume, to what we're discussing now. But the minute that you see this in wider use, it's fair. Like I'm not saying that it wasn't fair game before. I'm saying that the minute you see this start to proliferate, there is no ethical question anymore. Now we're just talking about an overall threat to the internet. There's nothing targeted. If you're worried about your equities and like what happens with your sweet, special sauce, exquisite operations, well, they have a much bigger problem already. And now we just need to go worry about the health of the internet and everybody else in it. So I'm not saying that it was all super easy at Google, but I certainly hope that it was, because this is the scenario where like all ambiguity just leaves the table.
The
You just
Peter
have to
Williams
protect
direct
folks.
connection is only speculation, though. We don't have any direct evidence that this is what Peter Williams sold to Operation Zero.
My
Kostian?
understanding is that Kosin, you speak. You know what you're talking about more than I do.
I don't necessarily, but
But you sound like
there's
it.
no evidence. No. There's
Nobody's
no evidence that
fact-checking
these
you,
are
so-
the same. But there's a lot of things here, including the timeline, including the fact that as soon as Google comes out with this post, iVerify, they come out like the next day with their blog as well, saying that somebody gave them one of these domains like 2 weeks ago. And I can imagine the process by which this happened. Remember, we were pushing like as hard as possible, like we need CISA, like as a supreme authority, a responsible authority, to do the right thing and come up with some IOCs, like whatever. I mean, this is like no longer a joke. This is serious. It's been sold to Russia. Who knows what Russia is using it? Probably it's using it against the US or whatever. And we were pushing like we need more. There, like I don't really care. Okay, so Peter Williams went to jail. That's not the story, in my opinion. The story is that what happened to the exploit that he sold to Operation Zero. And remember, in the indictment, they also talk about this being made available to Korea, South Korea, or something like that. So we need to understand like the full chain, like who used the exploits for what. And I mean, the thing which is missing at the moment is a confirmation of the link. But if you ask me, like taking everything into account, the bird names, Australia, the timeline, the exploits, all these CVs, it does seem to me that this is what we are dealing with here. And this was the method that was preferred to release the information. Not through CISA, not officially, but through unofficial
This is what I
channels,
was
through
getting to.
friends, through like the way that things are being done and have been done since the creation of time, on little pieces of paper, like with the MD5s written on little pieces of paper and passed in hotel rooms in San Francisco and the likes, or Washington, D.C., or whatever. And
I think you're more onto something there rather than Google's wide ability to find amazing different needles in haystacks.
I just want to say one more thing here, which is that everyone is running iPhones, vulnerable iPhones, and pushing websites through those vulnerable iPhones like crazy, just in the hope of catching something new and exploit. So I would assume that Google is doing the same. Nowadays, this is like easier than ever, since Apple allows you to run virtual machines on Mac OS. So you can run iOS as a VM on Mac OS, which greatly simplifies things. But everyone, I mean, that I know of, they're pushing thousands, millions, tens, hundreds of millions of websites, random websites, pages through vulnerable iPhones just to catch something interesting. And there's like probably no doubt here that this catches things. And it's quite possible that this is also how Google caught it in the first place, when they say, and I think this is very important how they put it, they say it was a customer of a surveillance vendor. So that means, one, they know who is a customer, or they know it's a customer, and two, they know it's a surveillance vendor. Automatically, you know which surveillance vendor. So I think that Google does know what it is, and they published all this because, the situation
because you weren't
is
getting
crazy.
answers from CISA.
And CISA is silent for one reason or another. Yeah.
CISA's busy, trying to figure
With
its own
what?
shit out. Just trying to
Existence.
to figure out, where the car keys are, and like, how to be a thing. Look, I don't know that there's much. I'm not saying there's not much mystery, as much as like, I don't know sort of what propels the decision to publish now. but they're telling you that they had seen this in February 2025 and then had seen its use be more prolific and different in July 2025. Like, it's written on the tin that they've known about it for a year, and that they have enough granularity, at least in how they're, clustering the use of these things, to understand that it is a commercial vendor. Presumably, they know which one. To also understand that, like, there are multiple customers, right? So, without needing to go into conspiracy anything, like, I think that this is just the system doing what it does, and um, getting a glimpse at just how much information tag is usually sitting on, and now GTIG or GTI. So to me, the big question is simply, like, kind of what motivates the publication now. And I would take this a different way. I don't have the timeline of the whole Peter Williams thing in front of me, but is there a possibility that Google were the ones who noticed this Trenchant stuff having proliferated, and that kicking off the investigation into Peter Williams? Because that's a different thing we haven't been told, is how do they come to, hey, this guy's been here selling this shit to people, X, Y, and Z.
And the timeline's matching according to Matthias, because we talked about this yesterday on the podcast. Peter Williams allegedly leaked these exploits. Well, not alleged anymore. He's in prison. In early 2025, the exploit changed target iOS 17 and SDK build versions pointing to 18x, which were current in that time frame. So it's like that was one of his speculation pieces as well, in addition to, like, the engineering quality and just this fantastic framework that was built.
Right.
Do we expect to hear from Apple at all, and should we? And I mean, this ruins Ivan's narrative that the malware problem on iOS is limited to this tiny, extremely sophisticated, extremely targeted people. Now it's on Chinese websites doing crypto theft. So that ruins that narrative. Should we hear from Apple around this with all the speculation and bumbling that's going around?
Should we hear from Apple is like it's not a question, right? Should we hear from Apple? Abso-fucking-lutely. Should we? Moreover, if you look at the iVerify blog, and maybe this seems self-serving to them given their business, but, like, their big thing is, hey, how about giving us, like, a security framework and APIs and whatever to actually do better security stuff on iOS? And I think they're perfectly justified in asking for that, the same way that we've been, sort of asking for some version of that for a long time. But, like, the Ivan Kristic version of the universe where, like, proactive security engineering is the only way to address this problem, it's built on a solid foundation of how you can do proper distribution to the majority, well, at least in your ecosystem, of security, but it has never accounted for that pesky surplus, that pesky unresolved remainder of the equation, that is the people that do get infected, the things that, the people who have not updated, the people who, are being subjected to these tools, and the fact that most of that premise continues to be predicated on the notion of scarcity of these tools, and that scarcity isn't necessarily a given, right? Like, yes, it is this. Right now, iOS exploits are, like, a very rare, thing in theory, but they're rare as far as, like, if you're on the bleeding edge of the latest possible iOS, and then there's, like, a whole world of people, literally, who are not updating like that, don't have the newest iPhones, but also there's a lot of interplays in this space that we don't quite understand. Right. And, like, one of the dynamics that we have seen is, like, look, I don't know how these Chinese scammers get their hands on a framework like this, but the truth is that the cybercriminal ecosystem has a lot of fucking money. There's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in it. Maybe it doesn't make sense to try to do ransomware shit on iPhones, but it certainly does to do espionage, and it certainly does to do scams now that people are keeping ludicrous amounts of crypto in like mobile wallets and shit. So Apple has been doing amazing work in just one style and one area and one dogmatic view of the universe, and saying we can choose to ignore the part that we don't like because it's like a negligible remainder. And that is predicated on the assumption that the exploits will remain scarce and that the motivations to hit these devices will remain sort of homogeneous and limited. And that's not necessarily always going to be true. And we're seeing, like, obviously, this is like a series of like blundering events that lands this thing where it does. But it's also not an unforeseeable thing. And frankly, if Apple was doing what we've been telling them to do for like 10 fucking years now, they would have been the ones to catch that, not Google.
How is iVerify able to be a mobile EDR when you guys complain all the time that it's impossible? Like, are they just doing a limited version of it? Like,
There's still things you can do, even as an application as iVerify for mobile. But to be honest, what they do is mostly check for signs of compromise. However, the bigger power comes from when you generate a sysdiag and you upload it to their servers.
I see.
That process brings a lot more data. And to be honest, the idea, or whoever at Apple came up with this idea of creating a sysdiag, and then the information that is available in the sysdiag is gold mine. It's absolutely fantastic. Sadly, I don't think there's any equivalent for Android phones. So this is just like for Apple. And yeah, that gives you a lot of visibility, a lot of things. Inside the sysdiag, you can find running processes, file metadata, history of things which happened on the phone, battery usage by different processes. You can compare process lists to see if they've been altered. You can see if there were like any hidden processes in the past that were trying to do weird things, crashes, baseband problems. Like there's hundreds, if not thousands or tens of thousands of files in there that can bring you a lot of visibility. And actually, we do an iOS forensics training with TLP Black, and we leverage sysdiags and iOS backups a lot for detection. I think sysdiag is the kind of the first level. It brings you like the basics, and you should produce sysdiags on a regular basis, on a monthly basis or weekly basis if you can. Save them somewhere, and later you can go back to the sysdiags and check them. And you should also try to make full backups once in a while. Again, save them, and you can go back and check them. By the way, props to iVerify for saving all their IOCs in a format that is compatible with the MVT. So anyone can just download their IOCs in sticks format, can download MVT, you can make a backup of your phone, and you can check your phone with those additional IOCs that they were kind enough to provide in this format.
Same question about Trenchant. Should we hear from Trenchant? And do you expect we'll get a press release from them saying something? Or this is just a government contractor that doesn't... What kind of responsibility do they have, though? If any?
Those are two different questions. I think the first question is really simple, which is there's no fucking way they could ever say anything about this, short of the US government telling them to, or asking them to, or Congress asking them to. Like, there's no way. Just by virtue of the kind of business that you do, and the kind of, what it means to be a good defense contractor, right? You just like shut your mouth and you take it in the chin. And if you can take a couple of bullets on behalf of the customer, you do that too.
Even better. And you get paid extra
even better,
for that, yeah.
And you live to deal another day. As far as like responsibility and whatnot, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, we're talking about responsibility for the fallout, and if that's the case, unless you have some sense that they were negligent in how they handled these things, the responsibility falls with the one asshole who decided to sell out his company and his team for some fake Rolexes and some, and some money, some crypto. And I say that very expressly because, hey, look, man, presumably we now know what this toolkit looked like. We never ran into it before, right? Like maybe Google had been seeing it before, but I don't know that they had gotten the full package and the whole like understanding of the thing before. So clearly things were being managed at Trenchant in a responsible, careful, OPSEC appropriate way for the kind of business they were doing. So if you have
What
an
a
issue with
cluster.
that, yeah, but
what a cluster,
well,
right? Like the more I think about it, my head
yeah.
explodes.
Well, this is this, and like somebody mentioned Eternal Blue and the Shadow Brokers, and like I really hadn't put it in those terms until like I was reading some of this today and like heard from you guys on those terms. But I mean, it is. I think that may be sort of an apt metaphor insofar as what it gives us is an opportunity, much like the Shadow Brokers, to have a different discussion, which is whether we object to the existence and use of these tools at all, which is often how, like, the conversation is seldom framed that way except by like, Citizen Lab or like some of the more activisty folks. And we immediately look at them and go, hey, you're living in a fucking unrealistic parallel universe. But in these situations, what we're basically saying is there is this uncomfortable surplus that comes with you did everything that you were supposed to do. You did everything right. You sold to the right people. You were careful. Those people presumably were following the law. They had oversight. You never saw these exploits appear in some insane proliferation of places that they weren't supposed to, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, some random asshole, some random pedophile, some random whatever decides, in the case of Joseph Schulte or in the case of Peter Williams or in the case of, whomever else, Harold Martin or whoever it might be, in some of these situations, just arbitrarily decides like, fuck you, and they just throw everything into places that it shouldn't be. And then we have to have the same conversation that I think we were hoping never to have, which was there are massively powerful asymmetric capabilities whose power is only acceptable based on that asymmetry, on the fact that they are not widespread. And if and when they do become widespread, then we have to deal with conversations that we'd rather not have at all. And this is one of those conversations that I do think is one of those we'd rather not have at all. And I kind of feel for Trenchant. Like, I really kind of feel bad for Trenchant because, and as an extension of Azimuth, which we've always, like, I've always kind of stand Azimuth, and like, look, I love John and Mark, and frankly, look, they did the thing the right way, right? You had a company that made money, sold to the right people. I personally can't think of a single instance where we would go, damn, I can't believe those dudes sold to so-and-so. I can't believe they would be in bed with never. They did it the right way. And then they sold the company and they're off to do their own things. And I think we're all supportive of them. So to see that kind of fall sideways now on the basis of some asshole who just wanted to line his pockets, and it's not even like the well-measured version of like espionage where like, oh, you just handed it to some adversary who's careful enough and measured enough that they're going to use that information in order to track US operations and be stealthy and kind of have one up on the good guys, if you will. Instead, it just turns into this like snowballing shit show where now we're just seeing scammers using a platform that is frankly too rich for their blood. Clearly, this is too high powered for them to handle. I point you to the debug, the debug release out there, and the fact that these are getting scanned and pulled by Kosin and they're not even taking them down, right? Like, this is clearly too much for whatever end user has it now.
Costin, what's
I
left on?
ask with my Kim Zetter hat in a
Ooh.
very kind way. More question to Azimuth. Are Jakurutu, buff out, cassowary code names for Azimuth exploits? I'm not like asking for confirmation that it's the
We
same
don't want an
exploits.
answer. We're just asking.
I'm just asking, like, are these like code names used by Azimuth exploits? That would be
Possible.
like enough
How will
to
we
know
know?
what we are dealing with.
I mean, I'm also really curious about the thing you mentioned, right? Like again, we're working with a hypothesis that this is Trenchant, right? So let's move away from it for a second. Not out of any favoritism, but like I just don't like getting too lost in the assumption, right? So let's move out of the assumption for a second, and let's talk about what is it, Operation Zero, or whomever the fuck is selling this thing, right? Because you then have a question of
Can they confirm? By the way, can they come and confirm instead? Like, yeah, this is what we bought from that guy. It's
if
okay.
they follow the what Elisa Isage version of getting sanctioned, right? You then just go and tell everybody, I don't know, I don't know why this happened, right? No idea.
Imagine a parallel universe in which Russia arrests a guy working at Operation Zero who resold it to the Chinese.
I mean, look, nobody's talking about who this like South Korean one was like in the middle of this, right? Like there are still edges to this that we have yet to man. And like, look, so here's where I'm really curious about Operation Zero. How much was Operation Zero a real shop doing real things versus it being entirely propped up by what was stolen from these folks and taken from Trenchant?
Just thinking out loud here, I wonder also if they acquired by the Operation Zero, if they acquired these exploits, could it be, remember that initially I said like the prices for these exploits are too low. Like this guy, Peter Williams, he was selling like these things for too little money, right? Do you remember our discussion? And I was saying like, they can't be iOS because the iOS chains are like millions of dollars. And now perhaps we understand that the reason the price was this because Peter Williams never sold the real 0 days. He only sold like expired things. Exploits from 2024, 2022, 2023, 2020, old shit that maybe they didn't use anymore, and this is what he sold. He never sold them like the latest, the greatest 0 days, only like breadcrumbs, old stuff.
Right. I can't shake the fact that that did cross my mind, along with the lines that everything seems to have stopped at a certain point. And I'm curious about what you think is out there today, hitting the newest versions of iOS. I mean, it has to be, right?
This is what we're gonna see in like a number of years, because I'm sure that there's companies out there who are seeing like the signs of things like you cannot explain. You see anomalies, you see like artifacts hitting your like the latest, most recent updated iPhones with the latest iOS, whatever. And you can't explain it. Like, what was that? We have no idea what was it. Or as it happened to us like a bunch of years ago, I think, what was it, 2018 or 2019, like some kernel panics, all in the kernel level JPEG decoders. And like no explanation. Why is this happening? Like, what's the reason for it? We couldn't find like the implants or whatever is being dropped, only that the phones were
You're being
rebooting.
too interesting, friend. You're too spicy. You need to
I just wanted to
chill
say
out a little bit.
I appreciate one thing, and this is like Kostin's advice for all exploit developers: the fact that this framework, if they see that the phone is in lockdown mode or you're browsing like incognito, it bails out. And I can only recommend to all exploit developers out there, all framework developers, please, if you develop like some framework, if you see lockdown mode, whatever, bail out. That's my advice, free advice from my side. You see lockdown mode, you get the hell out of there. Like, don't touch people.
This is
with
how we know
mode.
Kostin already bought an iPhone 17e, put it in lockdown mode, and it's just sitting there as a fucking honeypot. And he's like, don't do it. Under no circumstances Would you
Don't
like to
touch
get
it.
this vault of all of my secrets?
I
They're
know
right there. The
the
phone
temptation
number is
must be
plus
huge. Like,
six
we
seven.
want to be the only company in the world which has an exploit to bypass lockdown mode. Don't be that company. Like, it's the worst possible idea. Do not go there.
By the way, on the pricing and the cost for the Peter Williams thing, we got a live fact check from Kim Zetter, who said that he told the FBI that 2 of the tools he sold had $35 million in value to Trenchant. Still seems very, very low to me, but that's the
Well,
value that they had.
you don't know the terms of sort of the contract, right? Right? Is it because this is the vagary of a term like tools, right? Is it 2 exploits that had a value of 35 mil, which stacks on top of the cost of having the Coruna platform of exploit throwing magic, right? Like, again, with all the assumptions in place, but like, you got to think about like, what does the contract actually look like? Is there like a 6-month support thing? Is there like we give you this exploit while it lasts and then we replace it when it comes, but there's a fee of whatever, and like live support contract means X, Y, and Z, right? Like, there's so much there's a lot of upsell opportunity, guys. That's all I'm saying. And then frankly, like, let's talk about a different aspect of this. When I say like this platform is too rich for their blood, for the Chinese scammers, what everybody seems to be suggesting is look at just how high quality this thing is. Like, usually when you hear from the kind of folks that make exploits for Five Eyes, the conversation very quickly takes a turn that is extremely unfamiliar, I think, to the kind of like vulnerability researchers and like more kitty-esque people who are just there looking to pop calc. When you talk to the folks that are actually trying to do the commercial grade shit for like the true cream of the crop, they're talking about like the certainty with which the exploit will hit, the refactoring that goes into taking that and like rebuilding it in a way where you now have like a clear hit rate, like what's going to happen. It's like, it's a deterministic thing. It's not, if the state machine is found in the right state, maybe the thing hits and you have to try to infect it 7 times and 1 out of 7 it'll work for sure, right? Like, that shit does not fly. Having the infection kind of execute but not load the payload, that kind of shit does not fly, right? Like, you're talking about production grade exploit platforms that are meant to work no matter what, in the same way every single time. And it's just like a different grade of engineering, which is, again, why it's kind of sad if that is what we're seeing here. I think before the internet really crapped out on me, what I was trying to ask was like, how much did Operation Zero actually have to offer? And how much of this is whole cloth? Hey, somebody just gave me a copy of one of like the greatest exploit throwing platforms the world has ever seen. And maybe I'll shove some other exploits in there, maybe not. But the really crazy thing is the platform itself. The really crazy thing is like the throwing mechanism and the quality of sort of the general rigging around some of these exploits.
Kostin, you mentioned using the Valadin paper that came out last night to advance the research. They mentioned an Iran connection, and I see a question there. Do you see any Iran-linked usage of this at all?
No,
Deployment of the kit there.
Like, I guess it's just taking advantage of the news and creating all these Iran-themed websites. Again, the tragedy in Iran, help the people, donate for Iran, donate cryptocurrencies for the stranded homeless Iranian people, and so on. It's all scams. There's like no real link to what's happening in Iran. But like, I think, by the way, one of the missing points in this story, if I were still at my previous job with that kind of data, big data access capabilities, what I would be doing right now is just make a Yara rule for all the components of this exploitation framework, and then scan all the data we have collected going back to something like 2015, and then see what are the first signs of this being used. Like, what was it being used for in 2023, 24, early 2025, remember when the surveillance vendor was using it, and just trace back the chain, see who used it first, for what purpose, on what websites, who are the victims, all that information, like what water holes. And I saw Boris Larin, who is like one of the world's top exploit researchers, comment saying that people need to make a distinction between vulnerabilities, exploits. The fact there's like different vulnerabilities doesn't mean it's the same exploit implementation, and the things are related. So I would be very curious to see what Kaspersky comes up with on this topic with their data access, with their people like Boris Larin, what they can publish on Monday. I think that would be really, really interesting to see how far back they can go and what were the first signs of this exploit kit being used in the wild.
You preempted my next question, which was what are the meat on the bones left? What do you expect people to pick up based on what is publicly available now? What do you expect? Like the Kaspersky thing is an obvious one that came to mind as well. But like, where should people take the research from here? What is publicly available now that you can take and go do X, Y, Z?
I just want to point out that it's a very unfortunate timing for this news, which in my opinion is one of the biggest, most interesting stories of the year. But unfortunately, the weather is very bad. There's like the war, special military operation in Iran, which is how it's being called. There's this Anthropic story with Dario, who like sends memos and says stuff, I don't know, in the memos which get leaked, and then he walks it back. So like, just to give you an example, when I was looking at my X timeline from my different accounts, Coruna was not being like even shown in the news feed. The news feed was all about these other AI related things. And unfortunately, it seems like the story is just getting drowned in all the other news. But yeah, which is a pity, because it's a great story in my opinion. It's fun. It's like super interesting. And it's a matter of desire. Who actually desires to research it further, knowing that it may not receive any kind of further coverage? So if you do things just for PR coverage, this is not a good story. And also the desire, again, do you really desire to walk back on this story to 2024 and see who was using it first and on whom? I would assume that a lot of Western companies don't want to go there. They don't want to touch that topic.
You see the discussion from last episode when we were like, yeah, someone should share IOCs. I'm like, let's be honest. You know exactly what you're going to do with those IOCs. So like, yes, the hospital's fine. Anyways, what was this shit doing in 2023?
You can't possibly imagine that 2025 February was the first time when this exploit kit was used in the wild. Obviously, it was used before. You can't like possibly create this out of nowhere using exploits from 24 and 2020 and whatever, and just use it for the first time in 2025 February. So of course that was used before that. The question is, who has a desire to dig into this story, further, to dig up more shit, and see what it was being used in 2024? And if you ask me, I think the desire with the Western companies is very little there, which is why I said I'm extremely curious to see what non-Western companies are doing about it.
Are you asking that from knowledge? You said I'm curious to see what they will publish on Monday, which, you know me, my hackles go up. You know already that something is coming on Monday.
Knowing those competent people there, which I mentioned, people like Boris Larin, people like Georgi Kucherin, I bet that these guys are digging through all over the data trove. Right? And they already
we would
found...
be. We would be. Are you fucking kidding? You have been.
You, me, we would, like this weekend, we wouldn't be like about March 8 Women's Day. It will be about the Coruna digging day. Right?
Women's Day has been delayed until next week.
It's been postponed.
It's been postponed for Coruna.
We're digging old school exploits in 2024. Which takes time, by the way. Takes time.
I hate this framing. I hate this notion of like, like Western companies will or won't.
It's the truth.
It's the truth, right?
We describe things as friendlies here, publicly.
I mean, boastfully. You don't have to tell me that. I wrote the paper on that shit 11 years ago. I know. But at the same time, I feel it's important not to let this sail by as something that we just accept as the way of the world. Not because of the hypocrisy of it, but because I think it kind of it normalizes something that we should not be comfortable with, which is willful blindness, especially in a case like this one and the other one that we've been talking about, like the shadow brokers, where you go, hey, okay, maybe you don't want to publish on this, but I sure as shit hope that Proofpoint and SentinelOne and CrowdStrike and everybody else are researching everything they can in their holdings as to like, what have we seen? And more importantly, if we didn't see any of it, why didn't we see it? What are we missing in our capabilities such that this thing would not have popped off in our radars? And if it did, okay, why didn't we look into it? And what did we miss? And how did it actually proliferate? And in our data holdings, what does this stuff relate to? And I say it specifically in this case and in the shadow brokers case because something that I kept arguing post shadow brokers was, look, I understand if you don't want to publish on friendlies, but I sure as shit hoped FireEye and everybody else wrote signatures for the Equation Group after 2015. And if they had, and if they did, you probably would have noticed the leak of shadow broker stuff, maybe even before the shadow brokers actually got it out there. And that's one of those situations where you go, remember that you're supposed to be threat intelligence people and not, just sitting in the sidelines cheering for your friends, and frankly, doing them a disservice. Because if FireEye or whomever else had called the US government and said, hey, or Google, right? And that's why I said maybe the Peter Williams thing started with Google. I don't know. But I could sure come up with a story where you go, hey, we've known that this is Trenchant and we've seen bits and pieces here and there. All of a sudden, we're seeing this in Ukraine being used by what we think are Russians. You guys should maybe look into this, right? Like, how does this start? Was the guy just a fucking idiot and he goes to buy a fake Rolex with like his cryptocurrency and ends up like caught in some KYC trap, and then people go, hey, what the fuck is going on? Or did somebody see the proliferation of these exploits, know that it wasn't supposed to be sold to that customer, and go, hey, Trenchant, FBI, whomever, you guys need to go figure out what's going on? And I think that would have been a very legitimate, very important case of threat intelligence serving our friends that we should not abstain from.
What else is left on the bone to pick at, Costin?
What else is left? We need the samples. So if you can upload them to VirusTotal, thank you very much in advance, please. Where is the CISA advisory, which confirms what this is? Would be nice to get some word from Trenchant saying that they use bird code names for this thingy.
Sure.
The Kaspersky blog post coming out on Monday, tracing it before the politically correctly skipping the Ukrainian waterhole stuff, but going further back with details on the surveillance vendor and
I'm loading
their
up
customer.
Casper secrets to see if like they're already
They're
fucking with
active.
these guys.
By the way, there's a register story with Kaspersky dismissing claims that this exploit kit is connected to triangulation. So they already are like at least publicly commenting on this.
Based on what they read, not maybe on the samples, but
based on what they've seen, right?
And
I mean, but the
just
language there is interesting, right? Sorry, Kosin, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say one thing, which is there's another kind of conspiracy theory going out, which is that Kaspersky originally discovered triangulation because whoever bought this from Trenchant let them know there's a, which is it underestimates the like this is one of the biggest mistakes I've seen like Western people do, which they somehow assume that the Kaspersky researchers are not capable and that they're not advanced.
Yes.
Yeah.
I warned about this with the Iranians and the North Koreans as well.
We would always get that shit. We'd always get
remember what like the only smart guy who said about this was Rob Joyce, and he said that Great is quite adept at researching APTs. And that was what was he, like deputy chief of Tau?
And the people who
No, he
did do
was
good
chief of
too.
Tau.
It's
And the people who
silly
did
to
do good too and
believe
targeted
that they
great
cannot
researchers.
discover this without help.
Themselves,
That's
yeah.
idiotic.
Well, look, I think it's a mirror bias thing, and that's where you tend to get a lot of the U.S. government armchair analysts, the kind of people who just like they're living in their James Jesus Angleton fantasy of like everything, everything is a conspiracy and like the enemy, everything's enemy action and everything is betrayal and everything is somebody telling somebody else. And I get it. And in a lot of cases, right, like some of the stuff that we've been seeing with certain Chinese pieces of research and certain other parts, like Iranian pieces of research in the past, you go, this seems a little coordinated, or I don't see an explanation for how you got this, and yet here we are. And in those situations, I absolutely understand it. But to then look at something like Great, where the explanation's on the fucking tin. Here's the victim, we found it this way. Here's the server, we did it this way. Yeah, I'm sorry that, some cleverness caught your really clever thing, but that's the fucking game, right? And yet, you look at something like op triangulation, and I don't know, man, right? Like, what is the story? Like, once we get into this part of things, where things are just sort of like this bizarre and this unexplained, and we're not talking about the Kaspersky of our years. We're not talking about the Great of our time. We're talking about a new Great that's like clearly aligned in certain ways and misaligned in others. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like,
let's see the blog on Monday. 4 p.m.
Torpedoes armed?
Torpedoes armed? Are we? Yeah.
Alex Gostev at 4 p.m. torpedo. Well, 3:59 torpedoes armed.
1 minute heads
I
up.
remember when one of the guys he wrote torpedoes armed and then he had to delete the post. Do you remember that?
No.
It's like it's like we are not saying torpedoes anymore in the context of the special military operation.
Oh no. Shaheds armed? What are they?
We also got a report from Google about just kind of summing up the zero-day discoveries in 2025. The Google Threat Intelligence Group tracked 90 zero-day vulnerabilities exploited in the wild in 2025. And for the first time since Google started tracking the zero-day exploits, they attribute more zero days to these commercial surveillance vendors, the same thing we're talking about, than to traditional state-sponsored cyber espionage groups. Is there anything in the Google data costing that stands out to you? Any surprising data point there on ODay usage?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. As always, there's a balance between how many are actually being used and how many are getting discovered, right? And this balance, you never know.
The main question I always ask you, right? What percentage?
Yeah.
Correct.
Is it we are finding more, or is it they're using more? I think at the same time they're using more and we're finding more, but like the percentage of what we're finding is still like below 10%. So what's out there in the wild is probably just a huge volume, and we're like just finding a few, like the failures. And I also wonder, by the way, how do you consider whenever, let's say, the government is a customer of a surveillance company like Trenchant, does it count as an exploit used and developed by that company, or do you count it as a government usage when the customer, I mean, let's be honest, most, like 99.9% or 0.5% of all customers of surveillance companies are governments. I mean, those are the customers, let's be honest. So I would say that also counts as government usage. Just probably what becomes more popular nowadays pretty much all over the world is that it's become a very lucrative business to develop offensive toolkits, to develop zero days and then sell them for great profit and with little risks. I think it, as always, the balance is between risk and profit. you can make a lot of money, but then you can get sanctioned, like NSO, and your executives can get sanctioned, your employees can get sanctioned, and then you're in a load of trouble. So there's always like this balance between risks and profits when it comes to developing. But I think we only know about a fraction of the companies developing 0 days and developing offensive tools and selling them to governments.
Really?
We only know a
Yeah.
little fraction just.
How much of this shit is also like a willful misrepresentation of the discoveries on the basis of what's easier for these companies to talk about? Because when were they ever exploits being developed inside of the government? Like maybe they
Fair
were
enough.
being repackaged inside of the government, but I suspect, I would imagine that a lot of the 0 days we ever saw from most well-developed nations were sold by some contractor where the exploit devs actually wanted to work and could smoke weed and could chill the fuck out, and then like you'd package that and send it off, and then that maybe you rewrite it or re-implement it or whatever, but like I think it's always been some part of the contract. I mean, corrected in the chat that they wouldn't get to smoke weed regardless, but I'm really trying to push this line here of like a utopia for vuln researchers, but like my point is
what do they
simply,
smoke? What do exploit developers smoke? Let us know in the chat.
let us know in the chat.
What
Like
do
and
they
subscribe. The I think the point being, right, like I think it was always a majority of these things coming from some kind of defense contractor thing. The chat is lit. But the but at the end of the day, we weren't categorizing them that way, or we didn't have that possibility of understanding at that level of granularity. And now, what I'm trying to point at is to what extent are companies like Google willfully boxing this up as commercial surveillance vendors, even like, especially if you're talking to me about like a company that only exclusively sells to Five Eyes, a company that only exclusively sells to the US, and the US are the ones running the operations. The discussion of whether this is a commercial surveillance, whatever, yeah, there's commercial relationships in there, but we're really just hiding the hand for the sake of not having the discussion, and that's okay, right? Like I get that makes it easier for folks like Google and Apple and so on to talk about these things in ways that otherwise they don't want to talk about them. But to then come out with a report that says, oh hey, the number of exploits being pushed out by like commercial vendors drastically exceeds that being used from like in-house APTs, you go, how much is you like changing the labels on the buckets versus like just for your own convenience versus the actual changes that are happening in the space?
There was a time when 0-day exploits and 0-day usage was for the most part, the work of nation-state adversaries. There's the data pair point that stands out to me is that 0-day exploitation by financially motivated threat actors ties a previous high. 9 0 days confirmed or likely financially motivated threat groups, which were supposedly lower down in this pyramid. We're starting to see 0-day usage there. Are they just lumping in ransomware guys there? And I mean, professional ransomware gangs, I think, should be at least viewed within the same.
For sure, yeah. I mean, those can sometimes be like even a bigger threat than government level cyber espionage. In reality, I mean, if you go and talk to customers, talk to enterprises out there, the biggest risk for them is typically ransomware groups, because like a ransomware attack can be way more devastating than something of the level of, I don't know, Duku2, right? Who maybe just come in, steal some of your secrets, but never leak them. Never leverage them and whatever.
Oh, they definitely leverage them. They just don't leak them, right?
I don't know. The other example, I don't know, triangulation, Casper secrets. These are like modern warfare, psyops, and like everything is on the table. You no longer know what is permitted, what is not. It seems everything is allowed. But yeah, ransomware is for sure included, and it's probably an even bigger threat.
Well, as one of our avid listeners is like privately DMing me right now, it's like, well, the ransomware guys are loud as fuck. And yes,
They are.
but that's the point, right? Like those operations announce themselves. And that's something that I'm glad, since we're touching this on the back end of discussing iOS exploits and how we usually think of that shit as like very tailored, very massively exploited to a very select group of people that you'll never hear about, right? Um, you're talking about operations that don't announce themselves. As Kosin was saying, right? The Dooku 2 guys, they'll grab whatever, they will leverage it. Will they leak it? Not necessarily, right? Maybe nowadays they'll figure out a place to leak it on Twitter, but like, um, they don't, you don't necessarily leak that stuff. And that tends to buy you a lot of leeway as the victim of being able to hide what's going on. And that means it, by extension, it buys us a lot of leeway as defenders because we can just be like, oh, yeah, nothing happened here, right? Like everyone fucked up. The operation executed, they were resident in there for 9 months. They stole everything they could ever want, but they never publicly dropped anything. So the company never acknowledges the breach. So the defenders never have to acknowledge that their detection sucked and that like things were there that they never caught and that everything got stolen. Nobody loses, right? Nobody fails. But I think in that sense, like the extension of ransomware now into a space where they can buy exploits and they can do this and that, it's almost forcing everyone's hands to have to acknowledge how much more is happening in the space than like, look, just one more tidbit there. Remember 2014, 2015. Remember having to fight the banks to acknowledge that an operation like Carbonac was even possible, much less that it was happening. And that was the problem that we had in the early 2010s of like, you were fighting companies who were trying to tell you that you were a tin foil hat wearing lunatic for claiming that there was an espionage operation in their networks. And they just wanted like, no fallout, no victims, no problem, no op, bro. And that is gone by the wayside because there's a banner and a website and a leak site and whatever, but nobody's dying to acknowledge the surplus ops.
Well, this is the Ivan Kirstich position, right? It's like none of this stuff is happening. It's only just white glove, bespoke stuff at the top.
Can I suggest something? Do you know these army surplus shops where they sell like, I don't know, like the
caps
uniforms?
and t-shirts. Yeah.
How about the same surplus shop for exploits? Like exploits that they're no longer being used.
Isn't that what like Exploit DB? Isn't that what like Packet Storm and Exploit DB and
That's
shit were, right? That was like the straight to VHS.
Pennies. Sell them for pennies to collectors who can write signatures and find if they're being reused or whatever.
Straight to DVD re-implementations of exploits is what, like the Metasploit framework, right? Like,
how about exploitsurplus.io, exploitsurplus.ai?
Go buy it. Go buy it now before Silas takes them both.
Oh no, how stylish.
Speaking about the weather, it just feels like there's so many big stories that everything just gets lost in the shuffle of big stories. And we got a confirmation from the FBI last night that they've identified a successful cybersecurity incident on a sensitive network used to manage wiretaps and intelligence surveillance warrants. And they're scrambling to determine the seriousness of the incident. There are no details, no IOCs, no anything. But this sounds very typhoon-like, and the question is, am I overestimating this as a big story, or is this just another throwaway story in this whole massive world of everything being owned?
Yes, on all fronts. Yes to everything you just said. But like, dude, come on. In these days, like the FBI was nothing stellar before, and now, by their own admission, even in the article that you're citing, it's all about how like, well, all their forces are decimated, all the cyber people have left, like whatever's going on. But I will add another bit of nuance there, just for us to keep in mind with the way the language is being like opaquely pushed out. Is this a typhoon in an amazing surveillance mechanism that, they just like beat all odds and Cisco'd their way in there? Or is this the Lapsus kids using a fake email from a field agent, whatever, asking for a warrant on their ex-girlfriend so that they can sextort somebody through a wiretap mechanism. Because both have been happening in the past few years. Not plausible, happening in the past couple of years. And I don't know that we've accounted for any of it. So take your fucking pick.
Costin, what is your pick? What is your bet here? Is this China?
China.
I would say that China has been doing this since 2008 at least. In particular, the systems managing foreign intelligence surveillance warrants, FISA. I mean, Operation Aurora 2008. China has been doing this since forever, and I would assume that it's their hand again. But like Jack said, nowadays, everything is possible. No idea. I'm just trying to understand. It would be, I think, very important to understand if this is like a totally new thing, or it's just a continuation of Salt Typhoon or whatever we want to call them nowadays. And like they never left. Something like, oh yeah, but we didn't entirely catch them the last time when we caught them in the FISA systems and like the surveillance systems, when we just caught them again, but it's the same people. It's just like a continuation.
Juanito, could you stop typing on that keyboard? It's like
I've got to answer the people in the chat, bro. I don't know what
people
you
in the chat ask why your chair is greener than our chairs.
It's cooler. It's
when he
pulls out his like stethoscope.
Don't allow these bozos to distract us from the show.
We should not allow.
Don't allow these people to distract us from the show. But what I want to point out is that we just spent like maybe 3 minutes on this.
He streams Overwatch. Now Ryan has multiple shows. He has like a 3-body problem, has a 1-body problem.
He's doing his one body
problem,
somebody
to
love. Then I think he's like streaming maybe like what is it? Overwatch on his off time. Yeah.
Hold on, let me change the color. Let me change
somebody problem. Yes.
Let me change the color and get all green.
Wow. Beautiful, man.
Midori Kuma green, I believe, is what that color is called.
Let's
How
go.
is it that we spend an hour and 15 minutes on Trenchant and Coruna, and in 5 minutes we skip over the FBI confirming that their wiretaps and intelligence surveillance system is compromised? Like, it blows the mind that some of these this would be a huge story on the front page of the New York Times in normal circumstances, but now I'm going to skip ahead
circumstances, bro. Like, that's it. That's the whole story.
But it's crazy,
we're
right?
not in normal circumstances anymore.
I mean, the next story on our list is Iran and USA and some of the cyber that we saw and was confirmed there. And even this feels like this feels so old. I mean, a week ago, the Pentagon confirming that they carried out cyber operations and disrupted Iran defenses ahead of this joint military operation. I'll give you a quote from the Joint Chief of Staff Chairman General Dan Kane. The first movers were U.S. Cybercom and U.S. Spacecom, layering non-kinetic effects, disrupting and degrading and blinding Iran's ability to see, communicate, and respond. So this is what really cyber war looks like. Kostin, what do you think this looked like? What do you think he was talking about?
I think General Kane is a very cool guy, and every time he makes one of these speeches, by the way, he has a different watch. I don't know if you noticed that, and there's like a bunch of people on X who try to figure out which watch is he wearing today. Like, is it his Rolex, whatever edition? No, it's not a signal. Well, maybe it is a signal. I don't know.
He's signaling the operation. How's the operation going? Am I wearing
like
Mr. Juanito flashing
rare
his watch?
Breitling watch. What? Yeah. Is it like the same
sure,
one as General Kane? Is it the Breitling that General Kane
I'm not involved
has?
in the special operation. They have not given me the special watch.
Is that a Peter Williams Rolex?
Yeah, I was able to buy Peter Williams's fake Rolexes at a discount at an FBI auction.
In all seriousness, we saw cyber being used to disrupt communications and censor networks across the place ahead of it.
I think my favorite story is if you want, there's like several stories. Of course, there's the one of how this extremely popular Iranian praying app got hacked, and their Firebase was used to deliver a message to everyone. And also, like as a bonus, it seems that this application had location access. So like everyone using the app can, based on the location, find the best way to pray. And obviously that leaks your location, which means it's an amazing source of telemetry. So no surprise that was hijacked and used. But to me, the most interesting story was, of course, that the hacking of these all security cameras in Tehran, and then using that information to pinpoint the moment when to target the bunker in which Khamenei was meeting with his advisors. And of course, we know these cameras got hacked. They've been hacked for years. And
Yeah,
I think
Hamid talked
Hamid
about it
was
on our show.
hinting. He was
Yes.
hinting at that, right? He was hinting. But
You
nevertheless,
heard it here first, folks.
you heard it first on the three-body problem, the full body problem.
And all three. All three
of
bodies.
them. And I think that was like the really interesting part of cyber. If cyber hacking of these cameras allowed for that operation to succeed, I think that is probably one of the most important things in the whole war. And you know how important it was actually to kill the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran. And the fact that cyber allowed for that to happen this way, I think that's one of the most important happenings nowadays. And it kind of proves how important cyber is in cyber war.
The IDF also announced that it bombed the compound in Tehran that housed Iran's cyber warfare headquarters, the IGRC headquarters. They bombed a compound that included the IRGC headquarters, Intelligence Directorate's headquarters, the Basij headquarters, the Quds Force headquarters, and the cyber warfare headquarters. And there was a video that was floating around that Hamid shared on Twitter that was really fascinating to me. It's like in the middle of this bombing, the explosion is happening, people are walking in the street, and someone is having a camera, and then suddenly the camera pans down to a document in Farsi that shows like one of the cyber guys being promoted. It's just like an information op where it pans down. The document has no
It's
dust
pristine.
or crumples. It's just a pristine, clean document.
Just out of the printer, right?
You just see a camera panning from this explosion and chaos in the street down to this document showing this cyber guy, very clean, brand new, out of a folder, and then back up. It's crazy. So
and
we
that
know
guy just happens to be the same guy that was exposed previously by one of these activist channels, right?
Absolutely. So this, in addition to cyber warfare, we have all it's the head games being played here is crazy.
But the fact that Israel have people there on the ground, like next to the building
live
that
in
got
the middle
bombed,
of the explosion,
with a piece of paper printed, like that alone is just mind-blowing.
I mean,
It's
I think
crazy.
that shows sort of the underestimating that goes into what the big boys actually do when it comes to these campaigns, right? Like you don't just vibe your way to bombing some giant crucial thing and then go, we did it remotely. We're pretty sure that was the place. We're pretty sure it went down. We're pretty sure they're dead. Like that doesn't.
like we
that
have a
doesn't
guy on the
fly.
ground, like literally
We
with
need
a camera
we have a
panning to
motherfucker there. We had a dude next to the Ayatollah who told us the Ayatollah was still there when we bombed the fucking place before we go say, oh, he's dead, and then the motherfucker's still alive in the rubble somewhere. Like
You want
it's a
attribution?
different
Here's your
standard.
attribution.
It's a different standard.
What have we seen on the other side? Has there been any outbound cyber efforts? I know Patrick, shout out to Patrick Howell O'Neill at Bloomberg, kind of documented what we've seen coming out of Iran. We saw something from Symantec, or what used to be Symantec. It's now Symantec by Broadcom, saying that Seedworm, Muddy Water, has been active on networks and U.S. companies since the beginning of February 2026. Checkpoint is seeing a sudden spike in scanning activity for internet-exposed security cameras recording in Israel and countries across the Middle East. Costin, what can you tell us about what we've seen on the other side?
I mean, of course, this raises a question: if these Iranian groups are still active, where are they active from? Because the internet in Iran has been almost dead.
The internet
or
in
cut.
Qatar is pretty decent. Yeah.
The internet in Qatar, fair enough. So that's one thing. The internet in Qatar. The other, again, to me, this is kind of normal that they would be attempting something. I don't think it will be very consequential in the sense that it's done in a kind of probably a rushed fashion. It will probably be more of a level of a nuisance, but I don't expect that to have this comparable effect to what Israel and the US did before the physical action against Iran, like in the first hours of the attack. what I thought it was a much bigger story was how Iran was bombing all these Amazon data centers in Dubai and Bahrain, and wondering if they targeted them on purpose. That is crazy, in my opinion. And we do know that some of them went offline and they were showing this message that this data center is no longer available because of the
Amazon
bombing.
confirmed.
And
Amazon confirmed that they got hit by a suicide drone that affected a data center in Dubai. Bahrain also was targeted by drone strikes. The question here is, does these data centers become a legit target one? A legit military target one, especially when you're talking about like the Anthropic you mentioned, Dario, and the military uses of AI. These big giant AI data centers becoming military use cases. Is this like a new normal where Microsoft and AWS data centers are going to be targets? What do you think?
Dude, if a fucking building, if any random building in Dubai is a legitimate target, which is a discussion that we should have in the first place, then why not a fucking data center? And like, you know, the Iranian regime might have gained themselves some sympathy if they could take out Copilot for a while. That wouldn't have been like a terrible thing for anybody, right?
You do remember that Claude was like out around the same time they were bombing. Claude was there was like an outage with Claude for about 4 or 5 hours, and I mean, yeah, they said they identified the issue, and I don't think it was related to the bombing per se. But just imagine if one of the reasons Iran is targeting data centers is that somehow they are thinking or believing that these data centers are hosting the AIs that the US, Israel, whatever use against them. And then like data centers become a component of the AI that becomes a component of the war that is being used in Iran. So therefore they become legitimate targets. And keep in mind, you know, there's people working in these data centers, like engineers that have like no business in the war whatsoever. And in general, the kind of equipment that is stored in these data centers is worth way more than, let's say, just bombing a hotel room or whatever. Like the kind of damage that you can do is like on a different scale. With all the cost of memory nowadays, can you imagine like what is the impact of Shahed drone hitting one of these data centers and burning
I'm sure
it
they're
out?
well insured to be fair.
Yeah, but there's like a loophole money, like in insurance, sure, but like just in terms of damage, someone is still paying for that. And
I
we
remember
are
listening
paying
to
for
this.
the increased cost of memory because Iran is bombing our memories in data centers.
I remember on this very show when we were talking about AI replacing humans and AI replacing jobs, and nobody has jobs anymore. You know what Juanito predicted? Someone will go
What?
right over there and burn one of those data centers to the ground. So what do you expect
With
like
pitch and
militaries
forks
to
or
do?
what?
He's always predicting this shit that comes true. So
I'm the Cassandra of threat intel. I don't know, man. I am not ready to give Iran nearly as much credit as anybody wants to give them. Not on the kinetic strikes, not on the missiles, not on the cyber. Like, I see them as a fucking straw man bullshit shop now. And that wasn't necessarily always the case, but look, what did we say about the beeper operation? What did we say from the beginning, right? Like this looks like a completely different war. Hell, it's even like a totally almost desirable war to take on, as you know, as frothy as that term might sound, but like because the Israelis took out all of Hezbollah. And so like you don't have the Hamas forces on one side, you don't have Hezbollah as a proper like force projection arm sitting there in the middle of Lebanon. Even Lebanon was like, hey, disarm and get the fuck out of here to Hezbollah, which is, I mean, it's a fucking blessing to that country to finally, hopefully, get that cancer out of there. And that is why you can go and treat Iran like a 2-bit fucking country that really doesn't have a whole lot going for it.
this is the kind of dangerous underestimating that leaves us like dragging through things forever and ever. You're just like these bozos. They know
those are two different things. The dragging forever and ever is not because they're capable adversaries. It's because we underestimate the difficulty of running a functional society. that's the real problem, right? Like that. How do you stand up a functioning society, government, and self-governing structure? But it's not because they're fucking awesome and they're, oh my God, the capabilities of the enemy. It's because like, how do you manage this sort of like entrenched conflict in a place you can't possibly control, with the people that aren't ever really going to be on your side, but don't have their own structure that they can rely on. But it's not because Iran is fucking, like, the Iranian regime is just what an unbelievable war fighting capability it is. And that's part of the problem. Like, I'll give you the reason I'm fighting back on that so much is I think what this shows is the how God, how much we've been miscalculating things with Iran over the past like 10 or 15 fucking years. Because we could have taken this battle before, right? Like, we've been keeping the Israelis from going at Iran for however many years. And I'm not saying that we needed to proactively go and hit them, but once you get Hezbollah off the board, this is clearly a very manageable operation, right? Knock on wood. It's easy for me to say. I'm not the one fighting in there. I'm not, putting my skin in the game. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's pretty clear that the U.S. and Israel can take on Iran just fine, right? The concern was always, their force projection in other countries. What are the Russians going to do? What are the whatever, right? Like, so the issue that you have, and it is the same that Gabe glibly is putting in the chat, is the and then what problem. And that's all I've been focused on this. I don't think there's any scenario in which the Iranian regime is still standing after this. But the question then is, what the fuck happens then? Like, what is the humanitarian crisis and the failed state and it's not this religious mullah, but like this other group of absolutely reasonable human beings that are going to take this shit over? Or is this a vassal state of some country that does not want to fucking deal with it?
This is the kind of underestimating we've done to the North Koreans, the kind of underestimating we did. Like, the Taliban was supposed to be a few guys in a cave, right? They're now running Afghanistan.
They were a few guys in a cave. They're just out of the fucking caves, and we left them like $1 billion worth of weapons. So they're having a wonderful fucking time. But they're still a bunch of dudes in caves. They were.
Fair enough.
How about Cuba? How is Cuba nowadays?
We're becoming a geopolitical podcast, and it bores me to death, to be honest.
That bores you to death? No,
let's talk about cyber.
Microsoft and Fortinet and whatever doesn't bore you to death. Like, it's just
Jesus Christ. So, by the way, Cisco dropped some CVSS 10.02 of those yesterday. One is an RCE. So it's just like those stories. That's the thing, right? Those stories are now become like commodity stories that we don't even talk about. There's ODay exploitation happening against VMware ARIA for operations right now. They just announced it yesterday. Cisco is announcing like some of the most critical bugs, and we're just like,
It would be surprising if they didn't announce anything. Like, that would be strange.
No bug?
What's going on? No bug?
No bug?
Any comments on the Dario interview and turnaround and leaked memo and what it means for supply chain things? Or again, that's just not a thing we don't want to touch.
I mean,
Why is
I don't
Dario
know.
doing that? Why is he doing that?
People are too emotional, man. People are becoming way too emotional in these things. And where's the PR people in these companies to, like,
there you go.
Look,
I think I hate this, man. Like, I am a huge Anthropic stan right now, and
Claude is better than ChatGPT by lengths.
I mean, Claude Code is like my life right now. I live on Claude Code, and I love the absolute shit out of it. And I'm like contributing stuff to like I'm open sourcing configs and shit for folks to use. I hate to see what's happening to Anthropic. At the same time, I watched that interview and it was fucking painful. It was a complete failure of media training. It was a complete failure of PR, crisis comms planning. The whole setup was wrong. You got, like, I don't know who the journalist is, but the level of questions that you're getting are not really,
the choice of where to put him in front of is just like,
where to put it, but most importantly, once you put him there, How on earth can you willingly put a CEO in that chair to discuss the entire problem in the framing that the other party is putting on you? He spent like, I don't know, 40 minutes trying to argue his way out of being unpatriotic and like telling the US government what they can and cannot do. Like, it was every mistake that media training tells you not to fucking get into from the fucking beginning. And I think it's really telling that he says, "Hey, this has never been applied to an American company, right? Like
Only to
this kind of thing.
Kaspersky.
Oh, has only been applied to Kaspersky." And the three of us are sitting there. And it's like, well, having been in there when this shit happened, let me give you a lesson, Dario, on how you talk about these things. You cannot start the interview and end the interview entirely trying to defend yourself.
Defensive, yeah.
Like, you will never win. All you're doing is giving them a plethora of sound bites to support their position because you're there making it seem valid by arguing against it. He should have shown up and said, I really don't understand where the wires are getting crossed with the Department of War, but we're more than happy to talk with our counterparts in the administration and clarify that our concern is that the technology is just not ready to do these things. And therefore, we think it's appropriate to let them know that we're not providing a product that we think is in a place to do these things.
That's his strongest position.
And the day that it is, we'll be the first ones to let you know. But let me be clear that it's going to be such an economic boon in its success that the last thing you're going to care about is its applications for war. And you sign that off with a gold brick that you mail to the White House saying, "Sorry, Daddy Trump."
Yes.
And you just send it out
bricks.
there. Never did we mean to do that. It's like the Claude logo in
Gotta
gold.
be better than
And
it's
like,
gotta be better than Tim Cook's.
Tim Cook
Yeah, it's
went
like-
with one brick. You need to go with two bricks
you get the
if you want
Claude
to get
Code
some
logo
effect.
made out of gold, and it has like Dario and Trump holding hands like carved into it. And that's it. And you're done. And you give them some preferred stock in the IPO, and everyone moves along. But instead, we need to come out and do this like dumb fucking interview and then put out an emotional ass memo as if that shit is not gonna leak. And like, look,
Worse.
you are.
And then after the memo goes out, apologize for what he said in the memo because we were having a hard time in the company and my emotional state was in a hard place, and I'm shocked that this memo gets leaked. Like, which world is these PR people living in? Like, who's writing these memos in there and saying, hey, does this not get leaked in 10 seconds if you send this to the entire employee base?
I would love to know the company that's making Anthropic's commercials, because that shit was some genius level campaign.
Put them in charge. Put them in charge.
And
of
I would
the PR.
like to know, and I would like to refer a few people to do crisis PR and comms inside of Anthropic, because that was just massively mishandled.
Dario out of Anthropic
I was
CEO
just gonna
position
say-
by May? Yes, no.
It's this polymarket shit, or like what are we?
Of course.
Do you think he survives? In all
Costume
seriousness, do you think he survives?
I want Dario to survive.
I don't think he survives.
I want Dario to survive, and that clearly he's like a conscientious person who's really engaging with these things, who's just not got the polish to be playing that level of businessman. And that's okay, right? Like, you want him there. Maybe CEO isn't it? Maybe CTO is it? If I were at the helm of Anthropic right now, you know what I would do? I would go, "Hey, Dario," and whomever else. I don't know what the leadership of Anthropic looks like.
Take a break.
No. Hey, we talked to Sergey and Larry, and they showed us what it looks like to have these super majority shares. You guys you're never going to be outed. You are never going to be without a voice in your company, the same way Sergey and Larry were. And we're going to bring Eric fucking Schmidt to be the CEO. He's been working with the Department of War, with the US government, with the IC, and he has shown what it looks like to just be the lovable, acceptable businessman at the helm of an important company without fucking over the founders that were there in the first place. Go dedicate yourself to the technology. Go dedicate yourself to guardrails. You're not going to get fucked. No one's here to undercut you. But let somebody who is like the proto businessman handle this shit for you. And in that scenario, we're fine. Because I don't want to see an Anthropic where Dario isn't there. I don't think that's a win.
Let me
I
ask
think
the other question,
it's a
though.
win to
Isn't
keep
it?
him for sure. It's a win to keep him, but probably not the CEO. I think he'll be out from the position of CEO and do
Why though?
probably
Why? Do you think that everyone
investor
should
pressure.
kowtow and bend over to whatever the government is like bullying them with?
No, but the world works to follow it. It just follows the money, and the investors will force him out. It's my opinion. They'll replace him with a more politically savvy person, somebody who knows how to navigate the murky waters of Washington, D.C., who answers the phone, who brings the gold bricks to the White House together with the American flag. I don't know, who drive a Cybertruck because it's fashionable and it's the right thing to do at the moment. And I mean, look at Sama and what Sama said. He said, like, I don't think technology companies should be dictating the AI policy, but instead, I think that elected officials should be dictated. So he's like just outsourcing responsibility
his
for
brick.
everything. Yeah, but he's smart enough. Obviously, he's more savvy into this world, or just has better advisors, or he's got, I don't know, Satya and Adela advising him or telling him what to say and how to approach things.
I
But
think
either way,
we've talked about
Dario.
this. Sama already got in hot water, like, I don't know how long ago. And back when, I don't remember, like, in this sort of like forever year we've been in, but like, back when Elon was trying to drag Sama into a political fight, if you remember correctly, Sama all of a sudden changed his tune and very expertly suddenly just like sidestepped the whole fucking thing. It was, I don't remember what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, the wisdom of this administration will figure out what it is they want to do with us and we'll talk then. And he just like walked away. And Elon kept trying to bait him into this problematic situation, and Sama just didn't take the fucking bait. And that's the kind of savviness that like, that's like base level neutral savviness, which is knowing to just stay the fuck off the ring because you're not going to win. You are not going to win. I don't care if you like this administration, if you don't like this administration, if you whatever. At the end of the day, if you want to be a corporation functioning in America right now, you have to know how to play with the incumbent administration and then whomever comes next. And that doesn't mean that you have to do everything they want, but you're not going to win by publicly opposing them. You're just throwing down the gauntlet to get, shook down or worse. So I love Anthropic. I love their product. I want them to succeed. I want them to do well. I want them to give me more Opus credits. But I don't know that I can, like, clearly they need to get some savvier folks in the room and stop this policy of candor. Candor is great for building trust, but it alone is not going to win you the battle. In many cases, it's going to be the thing that's going to lose you the battle. So you need to get somebody in there that actually knows how to talk this language.
Will you advise
More condor, less candor.
Dario for Opus credits?
Would you advise Dario for some extra Opus credits? Let's do a quick Magic Money segment before we close the show this week. We got news from the FBI director last night that this kid, do you remember this this kid whose father was working at like the company that was responsible for managing the crypto for the U.S. Marshal Service? He allegedly stole $46 million in crypto from the U.S. Marshal Service. He was arrested in Saint Martin last night by the French police down there. And linked to this thing. Remember the story, Costin? This was the Zach XBT had seen him boasting and showing, like he was rage baited into like showing up some things. He just got caught there. Anything you can tell us about this case?
I thought it was interesting that even the FBI director shared some photos from the arrest, and you can see like a number of devices there, like. For the geeks, you can see there's a number of treasures, there's some YubiKeys, and a lot of cash, like a lot of cash, I think US dollars, as he obviously converted some of that crypto into cash. I, I mean, it's a sad story in the sense that I'm sure that his father was probably doing all the right things. Again, for the context, his father was this U.S. government contractor that was managing seized money, and somehow he probably just managed to hack his father or got access to some of the things laptop that his father was using.
How fucking
it,
sad is that
that is
story,
super
bro?
sad. Like to raise somebody like who does that to you, I think it's super super sad. And not
Probably
only
had
it's
passwords
super
written
sad,
on some sticky paper in the office at home, right? It's like,
or just memories of the Morris worm, correct? Like Robert Morris was probably in the same situation, correct?
I don't know, man. I have, and I know nothing about the Morris, like the actual story of like how the Morris worm played out. But I dream that this man was going home and teaching his son how to like create exploits because it was just like a cool father son bonding thing. My healing fantasy. That you know that's what was happening, and then the kid just applied himself, right? Like that's my dream, but I don't really know. I don't know anything there.
Super sad, and I think he was really stupid in how he got rage baited, how he, to show his wallets, and then he tries to poison some of Zach's wallets with stolen funds. Like these kind of techniques, obviously they don't work. Everyone can figure out what's going on. A very sad story, but I'm happy that they managed finally to get him, because I mean this was known since December at least, and everyone was wondering how is this guy still not arrested, how is he still walking around, and how come that money have not been recovered just yet. So it's good that finally people paid attention, and the fact that the director of the FBI actually posts on X about it, to me it shows like this is an important topic. Obviously it's kind of tough for cryptocurrency investors at the moment. It's the weather is bad. It's almost half from like the highest exchange rate that was achieved back in January, I think it was. So maybe not the best time nowadays, but we'll take a win. Everybody will
the
take a win.
FBI, the FBI director published photographs of like a suitcase of money, including a photograph of the kid in handcuffs, kind of walking around. I tell you, man, whenever they finally throw the book at him, he needs some extra time for that haircut, man.
For the haircut?
Like, yeah, I mean, like these kids
Is it
running
like
around looking like.
What is a Russian cybercriminal look? Like, what's going on there? Like,
All
I
right, close the show with
Sad.
some shout outs, guys. Juanito, what you got?
Juanito.
Shout out to this guy's haircut. No, I don't know, man. You always catch me off guard with this shit. I'm excited for Reverse. I am hoping to go talk to some of the folks out here, and frankly, like I'll be honest with you, I'm getting a little bit of a.
Wait a
I'm
second, we
gonna.
might have some breaking news here.
Oh, oh,
Tell us what.
happened?
OpenAI Code Execute is
OpenAI.
now in research preview. Today we're
Ooh.
introducing Code Execute, our application security agent. It builds deep context, blah, 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 how it works. Is there something that we can actually download and play with?
Formerly known as Aardvark, Code
Yeah.
Security. Mm-hmm.
This was just announced March 6th, so it was just announced today.
Let me see
We
if I
should
have
get
access
Dave
to
Vitale
it.
next week to come and tell us if this is still vaporware or if it's something
It's
else.
not vaporware. How can it be vaporware? It's there.
How do you did you apply for it? Like how would you have access?
Costin, did you apply for it? I know you were trying to get your hand on it. Did you officially apply? Did you even
Of
get an
course.
acknowledgement that you applied? Not even.
Well, when you apply, I think on the page, like after you submit the information, you get something like "We got please stand by" or something like that.
This is why, like, you asked me how am I calling it vaporware. I'm like, nobody's actually played with it but Dave. Shout out to Dave Vitale.
Meanwhile, shoutouts, of course. Meanwhile, we can use Grok, right, sure.
No, come on, guys. Like this is parody with what Anthropic had dropped recently.
That killed the stock market.
Yeah, which I mean, that in itself is like a mark of mania and kind of complete ridiculousness. But I'm glad to see OpenAI dropping this because they've had the capability. We've known about the capability since like RSA last year. So it's great to see it starting to make its way out into something that folks can use. And look, Codex is a very capable model. I think that what's missing for Codex is mostly to do with the way that it's being harnessed and the way that it's being provided for people to use, which doesn't have the same kind of user experience that Claude Code does. But the model isn't deficient. It isn't like it's not able to do the things that Opus can do. It's just you kind of have to do way too much work yourself to get it into the same, productized level of capability. So things like this, I just think there's a different workflow and experience that OpenAI kind of has in mind for some of these things. And I think that comes with maybe being not entirely enterprise focused, right? Like there's a lot more of the consumer side of it.
All right, just to fact check myself on availability, it says here in the blog post, starting today, Codex Security is rolling out in research preview to ChatGPT Enterprise, ChatGPT Business, and education customers via Codex Web with free usage for the next month. So you have to get yourself a business license, I guess, to be able to use it. Kostian, you still have your university address?
No, I don't have. No. 5.4 appear, by the way. 5.4 is still available in the menu.
Ooh.
I don't know if you've seen it. Thinking
so there's
5.4.
things dropping and happening as we're recording.
You see? They
And
need to time these better with our
that,
podcast.
I think even today, someone was saying that 5.4 is like their most amazing model ever with 1 million tokens context window.
I have 5.4. Okay. All
There
right.
you go. There are your shout-outs.
Okay. Yeah,
Shout-outs to
good.
OpenAI, dropping
Shout out
stuff
to
for
OpenAI.
us.
They're
Stay
doing all the right
vital.
things.
Do it
All
on
the right
Thursday so
things.
we can talk about it on Friday instead of doing
Send us a preview. You think?
You know it's inevitable. Like one day, like Anthropic and OpenAI will merge, like be one company. Dario CTO, Sama CEO.
They won't even fucking hold hands.
They'll hold hands like this, like brothers. Milk and honey and world peace.
Milk and honey and world peace. That's a beautiful shout out.
Kostin, can you close the show? Anything, any plugs, any shout-outs for anyone?
Shout outs to all our friends, by the way, who are like directly affected by the war. Our friends in Iran, our friends in Israel, and all the nearby countries. Friends of mine in Dubai have been seeing things fly over their houses. They said like, oh yeah, there's stuff flying over our house. So far, everything's fine. So shout outs to everyone. Please be safe. Take care of yourselves. And our thoughts are with you. Hope everyone will be fine.
Juanito, I'll see you next Friday in San Francisco. We're going to be out there again for Nebula Fog, the AI hackathon thing. And this is a building event. It's not a security event where there's like a bunch of presentations. People are just hacking and building AI things together. I'm very excited about that. Good luck to all the organizers working on that. RSA is coming up. Are you going to head out to RSA?
Fuck no. Absolutely
RSA.
not. I might go visit some OpenAI friends around that time, but I'm not. There's no way I'm fucking going to RSA.
Any closing shout-outs from your side?
Honestly, so what I was trying to say before the breaking news is that I kind of starting to feel like I've been criticizing the VCs a whole lot and kind of bitching about like, hey, you need to change your investment strategy. Part of the problems here are coming from, the VCs not
Don't do
really.
an about face.
No, I'm not doing an about face at all. I think I'm kind of trying to maybe get a little deeper into what I mean by that. So one of the things I find myself doing out here in Reverse is like starting to talk to some of these like startup founders, and like actually listening to the experience of what it's like to start some of these things and what it takes to build a company in security these days. And I'm mostly just fascinated by like a lot of the people I meet are like allergic to the idea of taking any VC funding whatsoever. They're all trying to bootstrap their companies, or they're trying to use like DARPA grants as much as they can. And then the theme is, and they all have revenue very quickly. They're all in like a very manageable state of like survival and capability that we don't see with any of these other startups. So I really think that there's something special that can and should be happening right now in the security space as far as investment goes, if VCs can just change their core thesis away from the hype bullshit into actually building real companies. Like there's something happening there that's just like, it's not even under the radar. It's just being ignored because it's not speaking the language of what folks are used to or expecting in the investment space. And there's real money being left on the table that, I mean, I'm happy to see it go into the pockets of the actual practitioners in the security space, but I just feel like we're kind of fucking up here. Like we could be deploying our resources a lot better. So that's a thesis that I'm kind of exploring, and I'd love to hear from some folks like Chris Neckar and others who are like much more experienced here, Sid Traverti, whoever wants to talk, just to understand, like, am I totally off base here because I just don't understand the investment space? That is an absolutely likely and valid thing. Or is there an opportunity here that we're just not seizing?
We should get Sid to come and hang out on. We should do a VC episode one day. Maybe during RSA. When Costin is not around. I'll put you to sit with a bunch of VCs to record an episode.
Anywhere
That's our
but
show
RSA.
for this week, guys. Thanks to all the folks for hanging out and fact-checking us in real time. We are being recording for just about 2 hours, so that's a perfect way to end it. We'll catch you next week.
Take care, guys.